It's going to take a minute or so. So
says it's live.
oh,
I believe we're on.
we are live. All right. Well, welcome to the grand experiment. The soul sessions are things that we have been doing for some time, and we've got a real treat for you today, but we are doing this is a new way for us to bring them to you, where we are doing it via Zoom on Facebook. So we would like y'all to give a warm Facebook welcome to Reverend Jesse, who's our senior minister, and Myokei, who is a practitioner with our center, but she is so much more than that. We have her bio in the email, but I want to hit the highlights. For starters, she is a Nichiren Buddhist priest, and more than that, she is a Buddhist bishop. She is the first woman of African American descent to be African American and Japanese, descent to be ordained in this tradition. And if you don't know anything about them, please look them up, because they're called the noisy Buddhists for a reason. She was when I was in ministerial school and they said, go interview a minister, she was one of the people that I chose. And when Music in Church said, go experience music in church, she was the one I picked. And I do not regret it at all. It was great. It was fantastic. So her contact information is going to be in the chat. Please look her up and go visit her at her Sangha. She is also very committed to spreading Dharma and does this in a number of places, including with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice and with the military service of Healing Hearts Warrior. She is also one of the tireless warriors on racial justice. She does a lot of work in that area, and we are always, she's taught a couple of classes with us. So she has been a practitioner with us for 13 years, and we are so proud of her, but she's also practiced Buddhism for 50 years. So that is what you are going to get treated to tonight. This will be an amazing conversation. Just really quickly, we're going to open, and we are just simply going to open by knowing that there is one power, one presence, one life, one love. And in that presence, in that life, in that love, I move and live and have my being. So too do I know that these two amazing teachers, that love flows through them as it flows through me, as it flows through each and every one of us. And I know that this will be an amazing conversation, and it will be wide-ranging and amazing, and it will touch hearts and it will touch minds. And what needs to be said will be said, and what needs to be heard will be heard, and the words of God will be spoken here. The words of love will be spoken here. And I know this with all of the gratitude in my being. I relax, release, and know that it is so. And now I turn this over to these two amazing teachers. And just want you to know that towards the end of this, you will have an opportunity to ask questions. So please throw some questions in the chat. We will be watching, and we will put them to the teachers as we can.
Thank you, Reverend Lisa Ryan. This is Reverend Lisa Ryan, if everybody doesn't know.
Thank you.
She is, speaking of tireless, she films every Sunday that we have and all the soul sessions that we have. And of course, her life for the past 15, 16 months has been occupied with that. Myokei Shonin, it is a delight to be with you tonight this way. We have not seen each other in person in a couple of years now, I think. And we've worked the same hours on Sunday, and I miss hugging you. That has to happen soon. I was hoping it would happen tonight. For those of you who are out of the area, we have weather. This is why we're doing it this way instead of with the two of us on stage. But thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight and have this conversation, which you and I started on. Well, we started it about 25 years ago, because in the interest of transparency, we've known each other a very long time. And you have done just exceptional work within religious science and the Buddhist work that you were doing before we knew you and ever since. And I kind of don't know where to begin, but just to heap praise and honor on you and tell you also that one of the great, I have shared this closely with a few people, really one of the great spiritual honors of my life, and for all of us who were there that night, and you know what I'm going to say.
Yes, I do, yes.
Was the night you invited us to participate in preparing you for your trip to Japan by shaving your head for your beginning of your studies.
It's a memory I hold very dear, especially the part about my hair floating around the parking lot.
Yeah. Nobody thought to sweep it up. But it, I was thinking about, let me just say this, I'm gonna throw it to you with the question, to tell us about your journey. But I'll offer this as far as ministerial training and preparation. Reverend Lisa recently completed that. Reverend David more recently, David Dewhurst, who also helped set up tonight. When you're in New Thought and you go from being a practitioner to a minister, it's not a real dramatic turn. I mean, the call that you feel is, but the process is more classes, some papers, some money changes hands. When you chose to move from being a Buddhist practitioner to a Buddhist priest, it was a massive life-changing experience for you, was it?
Definitely. Yeah.
Please tell us about your journey into the clergy.
Well, I had been practicing Buddhism for a long time and lost the connection I had with the previous group I had practiced with. So I was at a loss. And that's when I came to Creative Life. And it was because you were working on that book, The Four Agreements. And I thought, I've got to go see what these people are doing if that's the book they're reading. And it was such a shock of affirmation to my system, because I was feeling so down and out about losing my connection to my faith. And I didn't know where to go. And I found such a perfect home at Creative Life because everyone was actually practicing what they said they were. And so I really got into it there. I was still a Buddhist. I could not give that up. And in the meantime, while I was becoming a practitioner and diving into New Thought, I also found a new home as a Buddhist, and then learned that I could become a priest. And that whole process started, I think it was 2002, when I first took refuge in that particular Sangha community, and then started training. And the last thing I had to do, the really serious thing, was to shave my head. And you remember how long my hair was back then, very long hair. And I gradually cut it shorter and shorter. That was very difficult. And it's kind of funny now because I can hardly keep my hair at all. It gets to a point where it bugs the heck out of me. But I never thought I would have cut my hair. But it was such a treasure to have the people that I had studied and practiced with in New Thought, who also taught me how to love myself, and to affirm the basic goodness of everything around me, that it was very deep and profound to do that. I also had to spend time in Portland with my teacher before I went to the final training in Japan. So I lived in Portland for about 6 months before I did that. And there were several trips to Japan to test in how we did service and chanting, as well as the final part where I had to go and find a Japanese barber to shave my head again, which was even more close to the grain. And that had to last for the 35 days we were in temple and in the monastery. And so we actually had to every day do as our founder had done, and climb the mountain every day to go to temple and do service and spend our day in study and training. It was difficult, very difficult. But I would do it again, because the women I trained with became my sisters, and they showed me the one thing I think that in the West we have more difficulty doing is becoming a unit of one without ego, because they really showed me how to do that, how we work together. I mean, nobody was like, well, I don't want to do this job. We just took a job, we did it, and then moved on to the next job. I mean, I was the one who did laundry for everybody. And who would have thought I would do laundry for everybody? But it was something I did while they took care of the things I could not do. And so everything got done. We had to take care of the entire monastery. And normally there's 70 men who take care of it when they have the male classes. The women's classes are much smaller. So there were only 16 of us doing the work of 70 men, but we got it done. We just, I think we're smarter at how we did it.
No doubt.
But the greatest gift I got out of that journey was about my mother, actually. My mom, as a Japanese woman, came to this country after the war without much language and no community, no family, anything, and came to live in the United States. My experience in the monastery was much like that, because I'm not fluent in Japanese. So I had dictionaries to help me, point to words and translate back and forth. And I really came to appreciate and understand my mother's strength, which was not something I had ever thought of before. So
Yeah.
that was a tremendous gift.
Oh, that's fascinating. So of the 16 women, you were the only Westerner.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they did not quite know. I was the first one to ever go through it, actually. And I found out at the end that some of these people spoke English, but they never let me know that they did. It's like, oh my gosh. Okay.
Well, no matter how high they set the bar, you sail right over it.
It was a struggle, though.
Sure.
Very much so. But one of the things the headmaster said to me afterwards, he said, "You are so hard on yourself. It's unbelievable how hard you are on yourself." Because they wanted at one point, because of the diet and the altitude, my ankles were swelling. And they were like, "Well, you need to go home." And I said, "I'm not going home. Are you crazy? I'm staying right here." And so they were very moved and very proud of me when I finished.
As were all of us.
Oh, yeah.
Would you regard, getting a little philosophically over, but would you regard the swelling of your ankles as something like a temptation that the Buddha faced under the Bodhi tree?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Just, we call them obstacles, things that come up to prevent you from doing what you're supposed to do, what you've decided to do. and a real challenge spiritually to not give in to the fear, the pain, whatever's going on, to make sure that your determination, it's one of the paramitas or the perfections that we call them perfections that help you to cross what we call the sea of suffering, that when you're suffering, one of the things you must do is to be generous, to be patient, to practice meditation, to persevere through all obstacles and gain wisdom from all of that. And so the ability to persevere through things leads to greater and greater gifts of the wisdom and the meditation, all of those working together.
Now, yesterday when we spoke on the phone, we were talking about, among other things, grief.
Yes.
And the experience of personal and collective grief that the world has been through, particularly in the last 16 months. And do you feel, as you say, people are encouraged to get over it, get through your grief, come out the other side, get back to work, be a productive citizen. But it sounds to me like what you're saying is that the journey into the grief, not around the grief, is what causes you to burn off the suffering, the pain, ultimately, and come to the kernel of knowledge that exists at the center of that experience.
Yes, absolutely. I remember when my father died, it was very sudden, and I was in a state of lament for a long time, and the grief was often unbearable. And people would say, "Oh, you can't bring that here. Don't come here with your sadness." And it was like, where can I go with this? Who's going to support me through that? And it was very difficult. I felt I had to keep it hidden. And a couple of my members now are dealing with their grief. That's just been within the last 6 months or so. And they're always apologizing for, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm crying," or they don't even talk about the fact that they're grieving. And so we had a conversation recently to remind people it is okay for you to grieve. It is okay for you to wail and tear your hair and do whatever it is you have to do to release the suffering that you're feeling, to go through it, to let it out, and gain the lessons that grief has to teach you. Because we all have lessons to learn from grief. And I never would have said that in the past had I myself not experienced it. Oh boy.
Some of our teachers, I'm not sure exactly who, could be Ernest Holmes. He's my fallback position, point out that if we didn't love, we wouldn't grieve. And
right.
Yet that's not a deal we're willing to make.
Right. Yeah.
Every attachment of the heart has its pain potential built into it. New Thought, I guess, would say that the highest form of spiritual experience is the direct, unmediated knowing of the divine. How does that dovetail with my very limited understanding of the Buddhist explanation of the highest spiritual experience, which is the liberation of all beings from suffering? I was sitting with this today, and it seems to me you can't have the one without the other.
Yeah.
Yet you bring up the East-West dynamic, and how in the West we have this fierce individualism, and I'm going to get to see God like I'm in line, I'm going to get in. They're going to lift the velvet rope for me, and I'm going to get to see into the face of the divine. And it doesn't matter all that much what everybody else's experience is. Where it seems to me Buddhism being a path of the heart is so much about I can't be an island. I'm not. Can you
Well,
speak to that?
I think that it is true for all traditions that Buddhism calls the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, or the teacher, the teachings, and community are the three treasures. And I think that relevant and important to every faith tradition if we looked at it carefully and didn't try to separate it from something. Part of it is so important that we often tend not, the things that I found at
Just a moment, but here we are.
that it's an active, loving community that supports people based on principles, you know, the theories of the faith tradition or the doctrine. And when you find that kind of community, it's a very powerful staple in your life, because you always know that when you go to this community, you're in a safe space. You're in a container that will allow you to be exactly who you are. And I think that's partly missing because of our fierce individualism, that we don't need people and we can do it ourselves. And one of the things I think we all have to overcome is the fact that we need each other. And it's more than ever now so evident how much we need each other. This pandemic, if it has taught us nothing else, is the importance of connecting to each other. And I really believe that that's important in every faith tradition.
It is, and it should be. And Buddhism strikes me as a path. You don't proselytize, do you?
Kind of, sort of.
Oh yeah? Tell me about that.
It's not like we're, now some Buddhists do as the Jehovah's Witnesses and go door to door. That doesn't happen so much anymore. And some people are very actively trying to grab people off the street and drag them into the temple and say, okay, now you can become a member. The rest of us are usually just trying to show people that just as you are, you can become awake and happy and find a path through your life, to your life through this Buddhist practice. And it's the practice of meditation and mindfulness is actually found in all traditions. You know, and it's just it's so central to Buddhism, I think much more so than other traditions, but we've all seen it in other traditions and how it's available to people in other traditions.
There's a saying in the Christian community that you are the only Bible that some people will ever read. And,
Right.
and that puts me in mind of what you're saying. I mean, you show it forth and people say, I want what she has.
Exactly.
I want that serenity and I want that depth. It's also interesting how and I don't know if this is true globally, but in the West, a lot of times Westerners, Americans will overlook the deep mystical history and trends that exist in Western religion to go find something exotic, only to be reintroduced back by their teachers elsewhere, back into what was right here underfoot. I know I grew up in the Episcopal Church and got enjoyed it and had a pleasant enough time, but got really nothing out of it, which led me ultimately to look for other things and brought me here. Now I go back and I sit through an Episcopal Mass and I see metaphysics. I hear metaphysics. It's veiled, you know, but it's there. And it's been there all along. And if I'd been patient and looked for it, I could find it. So it's like there's an underground stream with countless wells,
Mm-hmm.
countless wells. And you passed through, was Buddhism in the home when you were raised? Was that the
No.
tradition that was practiced? No.
Well, I was born in Japan, and this is something I've just come to really understand. My aunt in Japan used to take care of me when I was a baby. And every time I'd go to Japan, she'd say to me, I used to breastfeed you. And I'm thinking, I'm an old woman now. I don't know why you're telling me this. And it just only recently occurred to me when my mom and I went to visit, and she said, she's telling me the story again. And I asked my mom why. And she said, it's because she thought she had lost one of her own children when we left, when we came to the States. And it really made me think of the fact that that was a very big gift of loving that she had given me when I was a baby, and didn't really know that was happening. She was also the Buddhist in the family. And so even as I came to the States and never practiced Buddhism, I would go to the Christian churches on the military base and give all the pastors a hard time because I didn't like what they had to say, and eventually ended up back in Buddhism when I was about 11 or 12. And it felt like home. And it wasn't until I was training for the priesthood that I found out that my family originally practiced this Buddhism, this form of Buddhism. That's what my aunt had introduced me to.
Coming full circle.
Right.
You see Buddhism evolving?
In some ways, yes. There's a concern for many of us that the whole mindfulness movement is taking it out of Buddhism and having it as a separate entity. But some people aren't here for the religious part of it. And so maybe it works that way. And maybe that's something we'll just have to deal with. But it's also a time when, especially what's happening now with the Asian and Asian American Pacific Islanders, who have for a long time been neglected as the source of Buddhist teachings. And so a lot of times you hear teachers from the West talk about, oh, this is not a religion, it's a way of life. But to millions of Asian people around the world, it is their religion. And so it's something that they've become quite vocal about, at least for the last 20 years or so, that they want to be included as part of the, foundation of Buddhism in this country. When you usually hear that it came in the 50s, 1950s or so, when actually it goes back even further than that.
Is it usually D.T. Suzuki who's credited with bringing Buddhism through Zen to the West?
Yes, I think so. But everybody else was here already.
Yes. Well, the name that gets floated a lot too is Alan Watts.
Yes, yeah.
Who popularized it for a whole generation after he ran into Christmas Humphreys in a bookshop in London at age 15. I think I understand what you mean by the pulling mindfulness out of Buddhist practice as a standalone sort of technique, because in New Thought, you've seen that happen too with like the law of attraction. Right. Where it's just a switch you flip and you get stuff,
Yeah.
And there's not, right. And there's not an engagement. There's not a journey into that. You have led 3, I think, Am I a Racist workshops, at least 2. I think it was 3.
Yes.
And I think one of them was on the cusp of when we were shutting down and going virtual.
Right.
for our center community and our people. When we talked yesterday, you were, how do I put this? You were the happy one in the conversation. Because I had just read my news feed right before we talked, for no particular reason, not to prepare to talk with you. It just was something to do, you know, till the moment came for the conversation. So I was sitting there being kind of glum and negative, and you were telling me that you believe we're at a turning point for the better. Tell us about that. We're hungry for that.
Well, I have to believe that. Not only as a Buddhist, but also as someone who dabbles in New Thought. Because as we think, so it is, right? And that was profound for me to understand when I first heard that, because I thought, how could that be true? And the more I experienced the awakening that comes from thinking a certain way, and how it opens up your world to be able to guide the way your life goes simply by how you think. That was ridiculously profound. It was like, whoa. And it's in Buddhism as well. And I thought, if I dwell on the negative, that's what I'll have. But I can live with the fact that there are good people and there are all kinds of beings out there striving and working towards love and connection. And in the midst of all of the negative things that are happening to us, the resilience of everyone who is working that path is so evident, that you see people caring for each other. And the ones that aren't, you can really see their suffering, that the lack of connection that they have to others, that the ability to feel loved has not been there for them. And that's why most of us are here. Those of us of faith are here essentially to spread love, to spread compassion, because those are the foundations for all of the happiness that we are seeking. And unless we go for it, it's not going to happen. And too many of us are going for it. So
yeah. And that's how you get to the unmediated experience of the divine, you know, is through that compassion, through that recognition that if someone is filled with hate, they're suffering.
right.
Long time ago, I knew a guy, I worked with him. He was very unpleasant. I was a kid. He was kind of a bully, very short, you know, and I complained about this to somebody. He wasn't my supervisor, you know, a peer. And somebody said, they told me about a medical condition he had. And they said, do you realize he's in constant unremitting physical pain all day, every day? And there's nothing they seem to be able to do about it. And suddenly my perspective changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I began to picture how I would be were that the case for me. And I'd be rude. I'd be ruder than this guy was. I mean, he had pulled himself up to a level, a baseline level of, you know, civility, better than I could have. That whole idea that it's when you hate, you draw to yourself a hateful world.
Right.
May be the key. You know, I've not had a lot of luck talking people out of racism, talking people out of misogyny or homophobia or transphobia. But when people realize that I, the self, am suffering because of the opinions that I hold, of the judgments that I hold, there's a self-preservation aspect to it, to change.
Right. Right. Well, I had a good friend tell me about a woman that just drove me nuts every time I was around her. And I didn't like her at all. And she said to me, and it came from a Buddhist story, that there was a monk who hated another monk, kept driving him nuts. And he complained to the Buddha, and the Buddha said to him, "That's why I sent him. He's for you, because you have to learn how to care about this person." And it was such a shock to my system to hear that, but it turned everything around for me in dealing with that person, just like you, understanding his pain and me understanding that it was there for me to be taught something. And I think we have to recognize that that happens for all of us all the time. Everything that happens, was it that expression, it's all for our good?
It's all for our good.
Yeah,
And that which we resist persists. I think that was
exactly.
Terry Cole Whitaker, I think, came up with that one. And it keeps being sent to us, you know, as a lesson over and over till we get it. Till we bless even the traffic on the road, you know.
That's so funny, because my teacher, one of my teachers used to tell me, well, we pinched your ear, then we flicked your nose, but that didn't work. We came up beside your head with a 2x4. And you just said the same thing. But it was like so many parallels. And that's just truth. You know, I've said this many times to folks, and people say to me, well, the Muslims aren't like that. I said, yeah, they are. They're based in love just as we are. You know, and no matter what we may think about what their teachings say, at its heart, they're all based on love.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about, for just a moment, I know we've got so much to cover, organized religion. I want to throw a story out to you and see what your reaction to it is. 2 soul sessions ago, Reverend Ronnie Lister was our guest. I don't know do you know Reverend Ronnie? He's a local activist and teacher. He speaks at Unity quite a bit,
Mhm.
and we've developed a great heart connection, he and I and his wife, Reverend Ann. And he was speaking to us. We were doing a conversation like this one, but he was doing most of the talking because he was telling us about Dr. Howard Thurman and Howard Thurman's work, which Ronnie has made a personal study of. And the story came up about how when the Mahatma invited Howard Thurman and other Christians to come to India for sort of a parliament of religions, and Howard Thurman, as an African-American man, was buttonholed by a young Hindu student who said, how can you represent the religion that has enslaved your people?
Mm.
And do you not consider yourself a traitor to your people? And apparently what came of that was the 2 of them sat up all night talking, and it was not transcribed, and they went to their graves with what was said, but it was a fascinating idea to consider, which segued into the idea that how many of our problems in this world are the result of a walled up kind of organized religion that posits the us and them relationship with the rest of the world. And how can we, other than being a disorganized religion, which religious science laughs about being, how do we fix that where there's still karma and dharma and sangha and the, you know, the community with a unified purpose, but that does not fence itself in from the people around it who are suffering?
So how do we spread love as a disorganized or organized religion? I'm not sure that I could even begin to answer that question, because I think about some of the folks I've met, especially within the prison system, devout evangelical Christians who have hated us as Buddhists beyond all imagination. And all we could do was practice our faith and show them what our faith was about. And that was teaching the inmates to respect themselves and other people. And once they saw that start to happen, was when we started to get more respect. And it's the work of embodiment, of just being the fruit of your faith. And that takes a long, long time. So we've got to be in it for the long haul. And it all begins with all of us. We have an expression, practice for self and practice for others. And actually it comes out that practice for self is practice for others. Because the more you practice for yourself, the more you change and become that embodiment, so that you are a better representative of humanity in the world. And I guess that's all we can do, is to try to show up as our faith.
And they'll know we are Buddhists by our love.
Right.
As the song goes, yeah, by our love.
Well, I heard the story of a meeting between Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King, and that he was addressed about being in the lowest caste. And that that really set him on a trail to recognize the caste system in the United States.
Yeah, Howard Thurman, his mother, I think it was, would read to him out of the Bible. And she said, but I won't read you, Paul. So I don't read Paul. Slaves obey your masters. No, we don't believe that in this family.
Wow.
And he never forgot that. And so what he apparently returned to America with was a faith not in Christianity, but in Christ.
Mm-hmm.
To be as Christ-like as you possibly can, to learn from that great teacher, how to forgive your enemies and bless those who persecute you. So we're getting there, huh?
I think so.
Okay.
I think what happened and continues to happen, especially around George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, the reaction of the people around the world to say enough, no more. And just that small movement is a signal. And we just have to be stronger than the voices that say that it's not true.
In the classes that you taught for us, I know you spoke and offered counsel about microaggressions and about the faces of racism, aspects of racism that are not overt, but are everyday slights. And it's made all of us more conscious, and it's made me more conscious personally about white male heteronormativity.
Yeah.
And how there's a standard that I was born into of how things should be when they're the best. And it's like a philosophical caste system. Before I'd ever read Shakespeare, I knew that Shakespeare was the highest form of literature on the planet because I was told this by other white people who were in authority and who I respected. Later, when I read Shakespeare, I said, Shakespeare's pretty great. You know, it's pretty amazing stuff. But who decided that this is better than a tale told in an indigenous culture that's been passed down, not written, passed down from mouth to ear for millennia, you know? Right. And so all of these assumptions of what makes great art, great music, great culture, great political system, all of this is built on sand.
Right.
And now we get to rebuild it. And I'm going to say this too, in our lifetime,
Yes,
you and me.
it has to happen.
Yeah, we're of a generation. And yeah,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah, I think so. I think of, as a female, when you mentioned the male and all of that, some of the things I've had to deal with in working, particularly with men and particularly with white men, especially since most of the male priests I deal with here are white men. And it's very interesting to see having to deal with not being aggressive, not being so assertive the way they think I should be. And yet still getting results that they did not think were possible because of doing it another way. And so it's taking time, that we have to address the fact that we're all different. And we show up as we show up, and it's cultural, it's familial, it's societal, it's all of those things blended together that we have to deal with. And we're smart enough and capable enough to figure it out. We just have to keep reminding ourselves that we are capable.
Staying awake.
Yeah.
Staying awake. Like in the Gnostic idea, the two forces in the world, and they're not good and evil, they're sleep and wakefulness.
I like that. Yeah.
I'm showing it's 7:46 here, and I want to throw it to Lisa, Reverend Lisa, if you have questions for Myokei in the Facebook chat, which we can't see.
As soon as I say not yet, then they might start coming in. So keep talking.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, this is a shout out to those of you watching. Please do questions, comments. We've got another 15 minutes, but believe me, we can fill it together. Tell me about tell us about the Healing Warrior Hearts. I can't read my writing there.
It's an organization, and it's now called, well, it's morphed into another one here called Texas for Heroes. And one of the problems that we saw was that a bunch of men came back from Vietnam with a lot of PTSD that was unaddressed. And even further back, even back to World War II, because they never talked about it. And so you would find these families that were being disrupted because these men had PTSD and they were alcoholics and, were very destructive towards their families. So they came up with this program to help them come home, to help them deal with what they were feeling. And some of the stories are horrendous that it's hard for us to realize. I think those of us, especially from the Vietnam generation, might be able to understand it because remembering the lotteries and, people being sent to Vietnam when they were 18 and 19 and 20 years old, they were just babies. And to see like whole battalions of people die and be maybe one of 6 who survived, those kinds of things. And their wives would say, my husband went to Vietnam and never came home. So it's based on a lot of what we might call shadow work, Jungian style work, to help them deal with these issues and then awaken to the harm that they were causing their families. And so there are programs for the men, and also now, especially today, there's women from Afghanistan and all of those engagements. And so there's several programs that they run, couples programs, programs for women, and it's a very intensive weekend or a couple of weekends where they try to get people to open up and deal with the issues they've got going on. It's a very powerful work.
What fantastic work. Yeah, the first wave of people at Creative Life who were not friends of mine or related to me back in the early to mid 80s. Many of them were Vietnam vets.
Yeah.
And we had no idea. I had no idea as a practitioner and new minister what to do for them beyond treat. There wasn't really any. Agent Orange was about the only thing that was being addressed at all, and that not well, but as far as the psychological wounding and the addictions that people came home with, and we lost some. It was brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Okay, we do have 2 questions now.
Awesome.
Okay, so Michael is asking, are all Buddhists as positive as you are about where, quote, we are right now?
well, I couldn't tell you that. I mean, I don't speak for all Buddhists, but I'd say a good many of us tend to believe that we are all constantly working for the good and will continue to do so. I hope that wasn't too flippant, Michael.
Okay, and then we have another one from Stephanie. And the first thing, she responded to something you said, beautifully stated, appreciate your heart has been fully expressed. And then her question is, and I'm going to read the whole thing because I'm not sure. Peace family. I have been reflecting on the power of intuiting. As I move towards a more intuitive life, I see myself doing very little thinking now. And then she follows that up by saying, less thinking for her is more freeing. Have you experienced that?
Yes. One of the gifts for me was awakening to the fact that intuitively, I know how to survive. I know how to live. And my intuition is a powerful force for guiding the relationships I have with people. And it saved me a gazillion times. So yes, I tend not to think when my intuition is screaming at me. I just tend to follow my intuition.
It's a lot easier than working out strategies, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
The whole transactional analysis thing gets very burdensome.
Yeah. And I have folks tell me all the time, how come you're always right? It's because I'm listening to that voice that's saying there's something wrong here. And trusting that whatever's telling me that is correct.
And you probably hear yourself say things that seem non sequiturs in the moment, and they're just exactly what the other person needs to hear.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
that's being on the beam, That's
yeah.
It's
It's the foundation of the work I do in prison with some of these men I've worked with over the years, to watch them change, to watch them grow, and to really understand that it's not from an intellectual perspective, but what I feel from them. Because if I listened to just their words, I wouldn't be able to do anything to help.
There used to be a program in prisons, I don't know if it was in Texas, but in some states, where they'd have inmates who had committed violent crimes. They would do role playing, cognitive reframing, and put themselves in the position of the victim and step into the feelings of terror.
Is that part of restorative justice, do you think?
I think so. I'd have to go back and look it up. It was in a state like Vermont that has a relatively small incarcerated population, but it was with violent offenders. And when and it was men they were working with, and when the men would, when they would have that experience of what the other party had felt, they broke open.
Yeah, yeah.
To the point of surrender, they broke open to where it doesn't matter to me anymore if I spend the rest of my life in lockup, because now I'm I mean, I can't
Yeah.
explain it. It was no longer about working the system. It was about, now I get it.
Yeah. And finding themselves, I had one man tell me that he finally understood why he never got parole, because he was waiting to meet me so he could learn about Buddhism. And once he had that awakening, everything changed for him.
Wow.
Yeah. And he got out.
That's huge.
Yeah.
We have another
Okay.
question.
All right.
This is from Kristen, and she appreciates what you both have said about learning to care for those who annoy you. But what is your response when someone spews vitriol at you, when it's beyond an almost passive annoyance and you have someone spitting fire at you? They're dealing with a relative like this, and yelling back doesn't do any good, and neither does just taking it.
I had once when I was doing some work on anti-racism, a woman approached me and said, "I don't believe a word you said. I think you're lying." I was infuriated. But that's when I remembered Creative Life, and I walked away from her long enough to calm down and came back to her and I said, "I'm grateful for the good in your life. Because what you said just showed me an area I need to work on in my life. So thank you." She burst into tears. And we ended up hugging. And I'm always reminded that whatever's driving that person, like the Buddha said, it was there for me, whatever that was. And I don't think anybody ever said to her, "I'm grateful for the good in your life." And that's such a powerful statement for anybody, to hear that. And I think we have to use it more. And I know there are people who are just horrible beings, but just as they are, they can awaken, they can become better, and they can work for the good just as we hope they will. It's not going to be easy. That much we know, dealing with those kinds of folks. And that was when I was fairly new at Creative Life. That stuck with me. I'm grateful for the good in your life. Still with me.
Yeah, we still use it.
Yeah.
6 or 8 of us there on Sunday.
It's such a powerful gift to be able to say that to someone. I hope that helps, Kristen.
She said thank you, so. I don't see any more questions, and we're coming up on 2 minutes till the hour, but I'm willing to let you guys talk as long as you want.
Yeah.
It's just a joy to be with you again and have you and I had some wonderful conversations back in the day, because
I know.
For one thing, because you live a great distance from the center, as you did then, and so you weren't in a great big hurry to get in the car and drive home, and so you hung around a lot.
Yeah.
We had some terrific talks, and I just have so much respect. Yeah, well, we're going to have to do it again.
Yeah.
And everybody's going to fly into each other's arms, here real soon, as we can. If you had and I know you do, if you have a blessing for us, if you have Namu Myoho Renge Kyo, which is, am I mistaken with it? It's the opening of the lotus to reveal the operation of the perfect law of cause and effect. Am I remembering that correctly?
That's part of it. Yes,
Said,
definitely.
okay, on the,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I was thinking actually of Reverend Ed.
Yeah.
You know, and he always said something to the effect that you've got it. And whatever it is that you've got, share it. And that's what Creative Life does so well.
Thank you so much for that. That's
Yeah.
Reverend Ed Jones,
Yeah.
who passed in 2005, who was a still lives in our hearts, of course, to this day. As does, let me say this, as we get ready to wrap up here, to memorialize just briefly a man named Bill Birch. This being a Wednesday night, we're doing this virtually, but Wednesday nights for years at the center were hosted by Bill Birch. He was our musician, our stage manager, our MC, our comedian, our violinist, poet, storyteller. He passed away a week ago today. And so we surround his family and all who love him and each other with love and compassion as we let him go.
Yes.
Final thoughts for us tonight.
I miss you all.
Uh,
And I love the community that you have established there, because it's such a center of loving compassion and kindness. And it was a foundation that healed me and allowed me to continue my journey. And I only wish that everybody who comes there finds what I found when I was there. So
Bless
there's
you.
no
Bless you for
amount
that.
of gratitude that I can express for that.
Bless you for that. Well, one day soon, on a Sunday,
Yes.
I'm going to look up and I'm going to see 4 or 5 beautiful godlings, because you travel with an entourage. You know, Mike and Daphne. I don't know if Daphne's still around.
Yes, she is.
Those that I remember from, I told you I ran into Mary in Colorado.
Yeah.
I'll look up and I'll see you coming down the center aisle, and what a great day that will be. And
With all our new godling grandkids.
yeah. Oh yeah. How many?
Well, I have 3, and Daphne has 1, and my 3rd one and her first one were born a week apart. So
Please.
yes,
Bring
we'll have
everyone.
to bring them on. Yeah.
Bring everyone. Well, again, our guest tonight in conversation has been Reverend Myokei Caine-Barrett. She is the Nichiren Shu Bishop of North America. And she is the founder of a Sangha, or spiritual community, in Southeast Houston, I guess around the University of Houston.
Yes.
Isn't it still where you are? Yes.
Yes.
And a longtime religious science practitioner. And if you Google her, you will find writings of hers, beautiful essays, in a number of publications online. And again, I can't thank you enough for this.
So happy to do that, to be with you and share the joy I have for just connecting with you all again.
So much.
We did get a couple of comments thanking you. One of them being David Dewhurst for teaching him treatment and meditation.
I remember him very well. Yeah. I think we did Roots together too. The Roots, I forgot what that class was called.
I think you've had a hand in teaching a whole lot of us that that are now, pillars of the community. Oh my God.
Well, that's what we're here to do.
Let me say this too. I mean, people like David and Lisa, they didn't just decide to become ministers and then look you up for an interview. You had a lot to do with their choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They watched you, and they wanted what you had, and they wanted to give back what you were giving back.
Oh, thank you.
So you've had a huge influence on people, and you're continuing to do that through your exceptional work. So soon we're going to throw in together and do a lot of stuff together.
Yes, we are.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Absolutely. Would you like to give us a Buddhist closing?
Yes. May the merits Nama Butsu, Namaho, Namatso. May the merits we have accumulated by our gathering today, our being together and sharing memory and stories and transformations, be distributed equally among all living beings. And may we and all other living beings attain the awakening of the Buddha. May all the Dharma realms equally benefit. And may we continue to walk embodying the teachings that we hold dear and share our love and light throughout the world so that we have contributed to making a better place for all of us. And so it is.
And so it is.
Yeah.
So it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Blessings and thank you. So please check the comments there's contact information for Myokei and contact information for Creative Life Spiritual Center. And check us out, look us up, and please go visit her. She's a cool lady if you haven't figured that out by now.
Thank you, Lisa. Reverend Lisa.